This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. This is show 344, the Tuesday, June 12th, 2018 edition. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, back with you, nowhere near the Brooklyn bunker. In fact, this is the fourth location for today's podcast that has been attempted. Perhaps if there's time, we'll go through the litany before the end of the show. But we've ended up, and this might be a one and done. We are deep in the bowels of a co-working space in beautiful Santa Monica, California. Peter Thomas Fornatal, along with the man, the myth, the legend. His record improves to 78-1 all time in head-to-heads against me because of that dirty nose in what was it? I don't even remember the race anymore. We'll talk about that in a minute. He's the people's champ, Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
PTF, what's going on? This is it's going to be interesting. I tell you, it's always weird when I get to see your face while we're doing the show. I prefer to be in my underwear for the show, but some Airbnb issues, some Wi-Fi issues, some issues with society, I guess, even have found us in this location. And I got a little nervous. I realized that I've gotten used to having the mute button. So that I can do random things, and I'm realizing now that I'm not going to be able to do that.
No, you can't. No throat clearing, whatever other sounds you typically make, you're going to have to keep them quiet. But one thing that is not quiet at all, JK, is that shirt. Phenomenal stuff. I think we might have to tweet a picture of JK's new shirt. It's sort of like Aloha through a very psychedelic lens. I'm looking at you, and I feel like I should be going to check out Moby Grape at the Fillmore.
Hey, I was going to wear it on Belmont Day, but cooler heads prevailed, I guess.
You wimped out, in other words.
And the only reason I'm wearing it today is because all my clothes are dirty that I packed for my excursion from Austin to New York to L.A., L.A. back to Austin tonight, back to LA tomorrow, and back to work on the World Horse Player Tour TV show that we've been working so hard on.
I don't call you my peripatetic friend for nothing. Let's start with the headline here. There's so much we could do. We could do 45 minutes of nonsense. Warning first, truncated show today. We're just going to go to 12:30. We are out here to work on cutting the World Horse Players Tour show. Things are looking good. There have been some tweets with a little bit of a sneak preview situation for that, and I'm sure there'll be more of those as we go on. But what a time this is, JK. Just whatever it was, 4 years ago, folks talking like a Triple Crown would never happen again. Now we've seen 2 in 4 years with Justify doing the business at the Belmont Stakes. Before we get into what everybody's been talking about, I think we should just take a moment to appreciate this. Forget any of the issues surrounding the race. Talk to me for a second about Justify, the racehorse.
I think the important thing is 6 wins in 111 days. I saw someone say 112. I respect that. I get confused on days as well. Like, do I count the day we're talking about? Anyways, 111 days, 6 wins, a heck of a lot of triple-digit buyers, one on debut going 7, jumped into Stakes Company quickly after that, one on a sloppy track, one on a fast track, mile and a quarter, mile and a 3/16, 2 weeks rest, a mile and a half, all of those things. He's undefeated. He's a Triple Crown winner. Let's not forget how long it took for this to come back, 37 years prior to American Pharaoh. So I think maybe we're all a little comfortable in the fact that these things are going to happen more often than they do. And let's focus on the horse for a second. Like you said, I think he's brilliant. Hopefully we can see him back in another race coming up soon. He seems like the type that will just only get better.
It's like the 1970s all over again, JK. There's a Triple Crown winner every few years, and gas is really expensive. You did wimp out in terms of wearing your loud shirt for Belmont Day. You did have the silver wig, and in fact, my great regret from the day, I did see you with your bestie B squared talking up there in the Turf and Field Club on Belmont Day before the race happened. What kind of spirits was he in? What were you guys talking about?
He was in good spirits. He actually told a really funny story that I think I could probably tell on air. He said he was flying back, I think, from the Preakness, and he was sitting on a plane, and someone leaned over and said, "Hey, you're that horse racing guy, huh?" And Bob's like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Hey, my name's Ice Cube." And they exchanged numbers. I guess it must have been after the Derby. And then after his Preakness win, he said he got a text from Cube. It says, "Hey, it's Cube. Good work." So, yeah, it's just a couple of degrees of separation, essentially, between me and Ice Cube.
Well, and you've got this famous group text with, likes of Nick Tamaro and Travis Stone and Eric Bialik. Maybe you can start a new one, you Cube and Baffert. What do you think?
Yeah, what do you call it? The Silver Hair Boys or something.
Watch it with those boys references, my friend. Let's talk for another minute about this horse. Looking to me, here's my read just on evaluating his form. The Derby win, we talked about it. Yeah, he slowed down late in the Derby. But when you run those kind of pace figures he did early on, that is to absolutely be expected. Now, the Preakness, it was ugly. I don't think anybody, even his greatest supporters, I think have to, if they're really being honest with themselves, have to admit that was not the grade 1 form of Justify. And it seems reasonable to me that there was maybe just a little bit of regression, coming back so quick after that grueling early pace, and then he really there showed his class as a racehorse and then took the step back forward in the Belmont Stakes. And maybe the reason the figure stayed pretty manageable was the fact that it was a mile and a half and all the various exertions. But I have to think, when you're looking at his 3 Triple Crown races, if you were looking at them on a graph and rating them, I mean, for me, like the Derby would be this high point, and you'd have this lull down in the middle to the Preakness, and then that line would be heading back in the right direction. Maybe the Belmont not as impressive as the Derby, but clearly this is a horse who is back-headed in the right direction, and presumably is going to need a little bit of a break from these exertions, but hopefully can come back and actually is going to maybe have kind of an improving, coming back into form, maybe sitting from a place where he can finally, I think it's possible we haven't seen the horse's best race, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, with the Derby and the Preakness, I was a little bit, it's harder, to me those races are a little bit harder to make figures for obvious reasons. They don't run another 1.25 mile race on Derby day or Derby weekend. They don't run a mile and 3/16 on the same day. They run the Pimlico Special the day before, which kind of helps a little bit.
Rain.
But then there was rain, so that completely gets tossed out the window. The great thing about the Belmont, as long as the weather's not tricky, is they usually have the Brooklyn, the 1.5 mile for older horses, earlier in the card. I think it makes it a little bit easier to make the figure. So I will actually agree now that maybe the figure is declining, but for legitimate reasons, right? I mean, the horse is lightly raced. You ran 1.25 miles, 2 weeks later, 1 mile and 3/16, and 3 weeks later, 1.5 miles. I mean, it makes a little bit of sense. It's not going to change what he accomplished. He did it well in every race. He did it, I would say, against he didn't get any cushiony setups in the 2 times he did. I mean, he ran a little bit in the early quarter last time. Yeah, he was loose on the lead, but we talk about that. Good horses get loose on the lead.
Well, that, I think, leads us into the topic that it seems like the horse racing intelligentsia want to talk about, and it has to do with the setup. And there's 2 aspects of this. And the thing I tweeted, I don't know if you saw it, but I will start here, is you want to see the difference in leaders when it comes to a potential Triple Crown winner. Pull up the 2004 Belmont, Smarty Jones. You see a succession of taking a crack at that one. And then you see this year's Triple Crown, where everybody is very and we'll get to there's another layer to this, and I don't want to go there yet, but let's just say everybody is extremely content to just let the potential Triple Crown winner do his thing. There's reasons why this could be, but Do you accept the premise of my observation, and what are your thoughts before we go further?
Yeah, I do accept it, and I have the 3 reasons why.
Okay.
We'll start with this. The first one is, God bless him, Stewie Elliott. There's no Mike Smith. He's not in the good old boys group like that. He doesn't have the Ortiz brothers calling him Uncle Mike, and Drayden calling him Uncle Mike, and Fleuron and Johnny and everyone respecting him, and Gary Stevens crying when he wins, right? All of these guys respect Mike. They're not going to go out there and try to stick it to him in a way that's going to affect his chances in a kind of a, not an unfair way, but a little rough around the edges. You're going to earn this way. The other way is Bob Baffert, the same idea. Those guys respect one another. He's a Hall of Fame trainer. Service at the time is a guy from Parks, right? He wasn't a guy that demanded the same respect from the industry, from other owners, from other trainers. And then
John, not Jason, just to clarify for some of the newer pod listeners, the brother of Jason was trainer Smarty Jones. Right, not the same standing in the game, certainly, as Baffert. When you have that many horses, when you have that much power, you whether you want to or not, you exert a measure of control over situations because you just have so much power. And whether you're, no matter what side of the business you're on, that's not somebody you want on your bad side.
Right, absolutely. And then the other part about it is the ownership group, right? Okay, Chad Brown, how many horses does he have with Saul Kumin, right? Todd Pletcher, some of his best horses are for Starlight. Windstar, have you seen Windstar Stallion barn? It's full of horses trained by Todd Pletcher. There's a whole bunch of relationships, I think, that took a real big play into the fact that it might not necessarily be that the riders back then were tougher, which I think they probably were.
They were.
It's
they
also,
definitely were.
I think it's the circumstances of like who Smarty Jones was and what he represented, who challenged him, and who Justify represented, and the choices that those guys made collectively not to challenge him as much.
Brilliantly put. I think that's really very good. And it's like, I don't make these observations to say that there's some problem with the game that has to be solved tomorrow or else we're all doomed. I'm not going there. But it just is something I think as racing fans and honestly as horse players that you need to be a little bit aware of when it comes to evaluating the sport and deciding what horses you're going to pick. Now, I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. I don't know about, I don't think you want to prevent cross ownership. I don't think part of me thinks you might, we talked about this before, limit the size of the public stables to control some of that power and make things more competitive. But I don't really know how you do it. So I'm not here to say, oh, it's all wrong and I know how to fix it. I really wish I had more ideas in that regard. But it is something I think that you definitely have to, if you want to talk about why we saw what we saw in terms of the difference in riders' attitudes, I think it has to be addressed. And like so many things, I do think it comes down to economics, and just the way that money motivates people, consciously or not sometimes, to behave in the way that they do. Now, let's get on to the sticky wicket, JK. We talked about it on the show, and many people observed. I think I said point blank, what the heck is Restoring Hope doing in this race? And several people, and I'm not talking about the tinfoil hat crowd, guys. I'm talking about horse players, owners, Hall of Fame jockeys have said in so many words that Restoring Hope was in there. Florent Geroux was in there essentially not to ride Restoring Hope, but to ride the other horses in the race, which leads to another very interesting concept of contrast with 2004, where there were, at least 3 other riders in that race were riding Smarty Jones. Whereas this time around, they were riding. Essentially, we're talking about a jockey who was there to ride, to help. The term that our friend Chris Larmy used was a blocker. And, it looked weird right out of the gate. We commented on it in real time, not knowing it was going to become this huge talking point of the internet. Where do you stand on this? What was going on in the Restoring Hope ride in this year's Belmont Stakes?
Yeah, it's tricky. Let me start with this. And this is not just a Florent thing. It's a lot of it. In every race, every day, a jock does something where I say, what in the hell is he doing? What is? What I mean, what did he not look at the form? What is he doing? Every day. That's the first thing. So just because it's the big race and you say to yourself, what the hell is Florent doing? Maybe that's just, that's what they do. They just do dumb stuff sometimes. Now, with that said, if you take it in its purest form, the trickiest part about the thing to me is that when he breaks from the gate, maybe it tastes slow, he is clearly being asked from the gate.
Yes, hard push gate.
So pause. You're Bob Baffert, you're Mike Smith, you're whatever. You're sitting down to come up with this plan. We joke about the conspiracy theory of the pick six where the guy fell off of the horse. It's like the guy sat down and said, all right, the 16th pole, if I'm winning, I'm going to jump off this 1,000-pound animal in front of all these people. Like, that's not the plan, right? I can't see a world in which they say that, hey, Flo, you sinned away from the gate and then get in front of everybody and stop. Like, why would you want to send another horse into your speed horse in the event that all goes wrong?
It's confusing. I did hear one theory on it, which was that it was almost like a head fake to the idea of anybody else who was thinking of showing undue speed. The idea that it would appear like, oh, okay, that one's going to the lead. Maybe I don't have to. So I did actually hear a theory about that. We're getting into the tinfoil hat stuff though, for sure. But I wasn't going to even mention that. But since you brought it up, what about his hands? What about the seeming steering actions that seem to shut the path off of one horse and then tighten up on another one down on the inside? Is that imagination? That what happened? We're pulling it up here and we're looking at it now, and I suggest folks who are interested, NBC Sports has a pretty good view of the opening furlongs of the race. I think we've heard the explanation from the camp, right? Which was, what are these? You take this.
If that's my race, if I have restoring hope, and I'm in this, I almost love the ride. As his to win, keep him in the race. 1.5 race. We always talk about horses excel closer on the pacer. It's a gallop type of. You put him in the race. You get him for those horses, and I see jockeys do it all the time where they keep them away from the rail, out in the open, and that helps them shut. He's only out in the path for like 7, 8 jumps, and then he slows over, up sitting off of the speed.
So you don't even think he's riding the other horses?
Really don't riding other horses.
Okay.
I actually think that if that wasn't, that's why people are paying attention to it. But not even said a thing if it wasn't the fact that it was like Baffert's other horse.
Well, of course. But I mean, yeah, has no business being in a race. You get a ride like that, and you.
I really honestly think it was almost a perfect ride if he was trying to win on Restore.
That's interesting. It's certainly interesting.
The really weird part, the fact that he stayed in the 5-pack, but people do that all the time. Especially on those big sweeping turns, ground going into the first turn, going a lap for 8 jumps, not costing him the race.
No, I think one of the big things is the idea, and I said that there was evidence, and I believe it, that the horse didn't seem to have any chance to win. This is a horse that Baffert talked about on Wood Day. He regretted not running in the Bayshore, remember?
Yes.
And so, that one comes out to 1.5, and you see business, it doesn't help. Some of the other people have been very reference the Hall of Hockey, amazing stuff they got out of John Velasquez. I mean, just going for the juggler about the Mike Repoli, similar. And then this interesting one, you made an observation to me, JK, that you'll remember and repeat here about Chad Brown being very vocal disappointment, not because, well, I don't know about not at all, but I didn't hear him disappointed because of the potential riding tactics, blocking tactics, whatever you say, upset about just the fact that the pace scenario didn't develop.
Yeah, it was a little bit of that. Like, when you're mean to me, like, look, he's mad at Jose, mad at the ride. Maybe he wasn't mad at Jose for his ride on Good Magic. I wasn't expecting to be pressing Justify. Like, we didn't want to Justify. We wanted to sit off. But then Justify went loose, right? and Magic ran a great second in that race. And then in this race, now he's like, oh, well, I want someone else to do that dumb thing. And then he's like mad at them for not doing the dumb thing that he didn't want to be doing in the Preakness. Like, I don't know what these guys think. They could just let Justify walk on the lead and then my horse can't close into it. Like, I just think, look, you know, it's just like in sports in general. You put a microphone in someone's face immediately after some emotional thing happens. Sometimes they say things that aren't well thought out.
But the PR department might have vetoed.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was some of these are very honest responses. There was certainly irony in that, though I will disagree to this day with the idea that the good Magic ride in the Preakness was wrong. I feel like that was his chance to win that race, and I do want to defend that. But there was certainly a measure of irony, and other people have pointed that out, and they've said, well, you don't want nobody challenged him because they thought that they'd just get blown up and he'd win anyway. A little bit of a different version of the jockey's dilemma. My point about the riders was in 2004, clearly you had riders in that race who didn't. I mean, they weren't riding to win. They were riding. There was at least a couple of rides in that race that were riding to beat the favorite, and I just thought that was an interesting contrast. The fact of the matter is, neither plan works very well, does it?
Yeah, no, and look, I'm like, I keep watching it over and over. Like the aerial view is really good. I think it gives you a really different perspective on it. And look, he broke well, and he kept Noble Indy from didn't keep him from getting the lead, just made it more of like a question that Javier had to ask himself. Like,
he didn't look like Javier tried all that hard, did he?
No, but that's my
just
point.
To get the lead.
Like,
I mean, I
feel like he could have like kind of gone on with it a little bit more. Yeah. And it's not like now here's the thing, is if Noble Indy would have been outside of Restoring Hope when Restoring Hope did the like 5-path thing, that's a lot dirtier than what happened. He didn't have the horse outside of him. He just kind of like let the horse ease into the turn so that he didn't kind of light up and keep going on. And then he would have really been in trouble if he was like dueling with Justify. He just got a great position, tucked over after 3 jumps, and was like on the 2-path. Bravazzo got himself in a jackpot down inside.
Well, Bravazzo seems to be the horse that a lot of people have thought would have had intention to go to the lead. That it's not, in your view, the Restoring Hope's tactics have nothing to do with Bravazzo? Because that's different than what I've heard.
I don't know. If you want to say that there was something fishy here, then the fishy thing had to be the Noble Indy thing, in my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, at that point, you got to think about how fast stuff happens. My bad. You got to think how fast this stuff happens, right? Like, you don't just break from the gate and think to yourself, oh, I'm going to shut this horse off. He's going to be inside of me, blah, 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 blah. It just doesn't work that way. It's a lot more complicated. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more a lot of things happening in a short amount of time. I just don't see how they can, he can break from the gate and say, I'm going to send here. I'm going to carry Noble Indy out wide so he doesn't go to the lead. And then once I accomplish that, I'm going to take a hard left-hand turn and shut off Bravazzo down inside. I just think it's way too much. And I think these riders respect each other too much to just go out there and just be on like suicide missions to like, ruin everyone else's trip. It's dangerous out there. And these guys they don't break from the gate and say, all right, I'm going to see how many of these guys I can ruin for this ride, for this trainer who I hardly even ride for. I mean, I ride for him every now and again when he's in Louisville or whatever, but I just.
So you're not buying it at all. I see both sides on this one, and I'm not willing to get out there and say, oh, it's a travesty. But I'm also not willing to say there's nothing in it.
I believe that Fleuron broke forward and wanted to make sure, he's like, look, don't let Noble Indy clear you. Just break away from their running, get position, and don't duel with my other horse. And I think that he broke away from there. He kind of lit him up by asking him away from there a little bit to kind of hold position with Noble Indy on his outside. And next thing you know, he realized he was getting a little bit closer than he probably should have been. So then he kind of slammed on the brakes a little bit to not get in real big trouble for dueling with Baffert's other horse. Yeah. I think that
that doesn't sound like in a perfect world.
Yeah.
That you would ride to win the race. and that would be like it.
But if you have restoring hope, if it's completely independent, the way you win that race is not dueling with a dual classic winner like Justified.
Totally fair.
When you probably don't even belong in the race.
Right.
Your best bet is, right, to break away from there, sit off of the horse who could be tired, who looked lame 4 weeks ago, who's running 6 races in 111 days. You sit off of that horse, hope the 1.5 miles hits him in the face. You've got first jump on everyone else, and you can keep running. Like
right,
that's
fair.
how you try to win that.
No, that's
race.
That's very, very well described. I think I can. I like I said, I apologize with my butt hurts from sitting on the fence on this one, but I just think it's really complicated. And the last thing I want to do is come off here half cocked without an opinion that I'm really 100% confident in. So, all right. I think we've dealt with that enough. Curious to hear other people's thoughts on Twitter. Talk it through. I'm sure this is a topic that will be revisited probably again and again. Let's ask the tough question: American Pharaoh or Justified, JK?
I want to see a couple more from Justified. I think that to this point of his career, what Justify has accomplished is probably better than what American Pharaoh accomplished.
American Pharaoh was a 2-year-old champion.
Yeah, he didn't even run the Breeders' Cup though.
No, but he had Grade 1 form as a juvenile. That's
right.
Better to me than 6 races in 5 weeks, several of which, or whatever it is, 111 days, some of which were against absolute tomato cans.
Yeah, but it's fair. I just think at this point, right here at this small point, I think American Pharaoh. I think Justify's Derby was more important. It was more impressive than American Pharaoh's.
I don't disagree, but I think Pharaoh bounced in the Derby. I don't think that was super impressive race. I think that was his winning on class. The way that Justify's winning on class was the Preakness, and I think Pharaoh, when you view it, I think Pharaoh's Derby was a lot more impressive than Justify's Preakness when you look at every single factor.
Yeah, and I also think that their Belmonts feel very similar.
But I think Pharaoh was much more impressive.
I thought they were very similar.
I guess you might be right. You know what I'm doing? I'm letting the narrative affect me a little bit when I say that so knee jerk. But it's not like Pharaoh. I mean, they kind of let Pharaoh. We didn't have the narrative because we didn't have Baffert with another horse and we didn't have the common ownership issues. But when you look at the rider tactics, it was kind of similar, wasn't it? As I'm thinking back.
They were both slow paces, right? And I'm looking at pace figures now to double check. According to pace figures, whichever you look, I haven't looked at time form yet, but just other pace figures that we can see sometimes. Justified was faster early, significantly faster.
And what were the Pharaoh's Belmont was a low figure, which I think low-ish, which I always was wondering about. It's one of those numbers that, like, I wish I could say I did math and could back this up with numbers, but I always felt like that figure came back a little low. What did Justify earn on the buyer scale? 100, 101?
I believe it was 100. I'm pretty sure it was 100. With Opportunity running the 1.5 miles earlier, I think either right there at 100 or 99 or something along those lines.
And Pharaoh was probably pretty similar or a little faster.
I think it was a little faster.
Okay.
I think it was.
But the pace with the pace situation, you could call them even. You could probably tell I'm Pharaoh camp on this one. I just feel like he did more like fast.
Yeah.
Running fast early and late. I feel like Justify has either run fast early or late. And I feel like, which is one of the reasons why I still think there's a chance we might not have seen the best of him. I feel like there's room for him to improve and finally run like a totally complete race and maybe really blow us away at some point.
Feels like his best race is going to be like in the Classic if we see him that long, right? Or like his Travers or.
I still don't think there's any way he's running in the Travers. I mean,
you know what's funny though? That ownership group, Windstar, especially Starlight, Saul with the Saul Cumin and those guys that are running these kind of these syndicates. They want that attention on those big stages. China Horse Club. I mean, China Horse Club their owners, their group of owners, they want to win the Travers. They could care less about the Awesome again, right?
Right, or the Parks race. I think would be the one.
Pennsylvania Derby.
Yeah.
They want to win. They want to win those big races because that's what it is. It's a horse club of guys who want to win big races in America, and the Travers doesn't get much bigger.
Well, when you're texting Ice Cube and B Squared, B Squared is going to be the one who I think is going to probably have an issue with it because I'm pretty sure he still has nightmares, and he wakes up in the nightmare and he says, "We should have gone to Pennsylvania."
Did you see the interview that Andy Serling did, like a roundtable he did with Pletcher, Dwayne Lucas, Baffert, and Dale? Yeah, and he said Dale made the joke, paraphrasing. I don't want to mess up his quote, but essentially like, "Well, if we don't win the Belmont, there's always the Travers."
Very cheeky stuff from the great Dale Rovitz. Such a character. It was an unbelievable day of racing out there, JK. Gosh, we've only got about 10 minutes left, so I'm trying to decide how much we want to do. Do you want to talk about the undercard? Do you want to talk about the contests?
Yeah, I think maybe we should just kind of blast through some of the undercard spots.
Let's do it.
And talk about the performances. Obviously, caught our attention. The first stake of the day was the Easy Goer, where I did not have Prince Lucky anywhere.
I was brutal in there. I think I gave out 2 horses, and they ran DFL and second to DFL, dead flipping last. Any notes on that race? Anything to look at coming out of it?
No, it's Mask. Just I thought this was going to kind of be his turnaround race, but he wasn't particularly strong there.
What price did he go off at?
Mask was 7-5.
Okay, so they did come for him a bit. That was the one I was so interested in, the tepid betting last time. But really, Mask, for all that he'd been sort of cracked up to for that and the hype, maybe 7-5 isn't really coming for him. Maybe he's I don't know. He is going to have to reverse form to get to the potential that many thought he had earlier on. Any other thoughts coming out of that race?
No, I thought it was interesting. It was just kind of a blanket finish between the top 3 with Prince Lucky, Rugby Man, and Dark Vader. Dark Vader I was working with a horse that, and I'm going to blank on the name, that beat Solomini on Sunday.
Oh, right.
In that stake race. So Dark Vader's form that race's form seemed to kind of hold up a little bit with some quality horses that could. Those are the types of horses that turn into something special later in the year. If I remember, I believe an alumni of that race was West Coast. I think he won that race and turned out to be a pretty darn good horse.
That's a great point. Yeah, West Coast, I'm almost positive, won that race in the obviously it was the year he ended up winning the Travers. We've got to speed round these because we've only got about 10 minutes, but let's roll through from the beginning. Since we started this way, let's keep it rocking.
Yeah, the Phipps. How good was Abel Tasman?
Hey, if I did one thing well on the podcast, on the show on Friday, I'm pretty sure I said this on the show. If Abel Tasman runs off the screen, don't forget what Baffert's done on some of these big days in New York. Sometimes they're all cycling up together and they're all going to run 3 to 4 lengths better than you have any reason to think. And I'm pretty sure that applies to Abel Tasman getting back to it. And I thanks to my friend Dan Illman, got to do some DRF video work and even do some jockey interviews for the first time in my life this weekend, JK. That was fun.
There you go. Did you tell him? Did you ask him about the jockey's dilemma? Did you tell him we got to go on with it, move forward? Tell Mike we appreciate that aggressive ride. I don't know if Mike middle moves this horse or if she middle moves herself. But it always, I didn't really worry. I would have gotten worried in normal situations when they middle move like that. I'm like, oh, geez, they're not going to hold on. But she's shown it
several times. Right. One time I think it didn't work, but famously I think it was the CCA Oaks at Saratoga. And again, I mean, he just has a great partnership with her, and it had to be a great thrill to get back in the winner's circle.
Ivy Bell running second for a nice podcast exacta there.
Absolutely.
Which was good at 7-1. She made a little bit of a run like she was going to get there, but on the tournament, Abel Tasman was never losing when they turned for home.
Let's move on, JK, to the 4th race, which was the
Acorn. Yeah, Monomoy girl. She was super impressive as well. Another podcast exacta. I got a tweet about that. Talk for me. Yeah, which is one of my favorites.
Why do you always call her Talk Move for me? Isn't it Talk Move to me?
Oh, it is to me.
Get that mistake jar out. We can use that cup over there on the other team.
You're right. I spent all my money on Ubers today. I can't Ubering around town.
One day, the story of today will be told. It might have to be a podcast after dark in the dungeon, but one day the story will be told, folks. It will not be this day, however. Keep Monomoy Girl, just unbelievable, best 3-year-old filly in the country. Incredible story. I actually did that post interview too and asked what he thought the best distance was, and he did say the mile, which I thought was interesting. Sounds like the CCA Oaks will be next, which is a very logical spot. She's so good. Looking forward to just seeing what she does the rest of the year. Any other thoughts on that?
I think that's a fun note to kind of keep mentally. Although I'm a huge fan of this filly, she goes on and wins the CCAO Oaks off of class. Then she's going to obviously run back because they don't really have another choice but to run her back in the Alabama. That's at 1.25 miles. Maybe we're foreshadowing an opportunity to play against it. What obviously will be a short price is like the best 3-year-old filly in the world, and then you find a late running Chad or a Shug or a late whatever, a Belmont that's going to come running late, it's going to love the 1.25 miles at a much better price than she might be.
Be careful with that best 3-year-old filly in the world stuff. Aiden O'Brien might just cross you off the Christmas list. Let's go on to the Brooklyn Baffert flying once again. Another race where I'm pretty sure most podcast listeners would have probably caught the X. I don't think it paid all that much, but nothing to crow about.
You think we can get this race changed to the Brooklyn Bunker? The Grade 2 Brooklyn Bunker?
We'll get a Brooklyn Bunker someday, but I think it might be at Finger Lakes. Any other thoughts on that one before we move on?
No. Hopper's such a cool horse.
Amazing.
Yeah, he's been with us for quite some time. I don't see his age in front of me at the moment, but what he's got to be 7, 8.
Yeah.
You
can't click on that and get an age.
No, there's I don't think so. No, we're ageless at this moment.
Right, I'm going to call that for the mistake chart too.
Yeah. No, but he's what a cool horse he is, and good to always see him in the winner's circle.
One of podcast host emeritus Matt Bernier's favorite horses. Brain, I'm mistake chart's filling up. Let's go.
Disco Partner was impressive. I really liked Conquest Tsunami in there, but Disco Partner, he's one of those horses that you could put on the board as I was against because of a circumstance, and he still ran okay, which was he was at Keeneland.
Right.
We were against that one day trying to be cute, and he ran well enough. And now he shows up here and runs off the screen. He's good.
Yeah, another one.
Really good. I mean, I don't know if he wants to see the big horse. But I do think he's definitely good.
You're still back in Long On Value in the big showdown in the fall. Let's keep going.
There's been some impressive performances this year. Justify's Triple Crown was great, but I'm still a big fan of Long On Value's comeback win at Churchill Downs.
Oh man, not biased at all, says one of the owners here.
The Woody Stevens. This is a Nicky the Boss shout-out.
Absolutely. Nick Tamara was giving this horse out 7 ways to Sunday on Steve Bix at the Races show and also on social media, and ran terrific for my old buddy Tim Keefe, who had a horse for me many, many years ago. Great to see him succeeding on one of racing's biggest stages. Engage ran well. Was disappointed by the run of Strike Power. I haven't done full tape work on that yet. Was there any excuse for Strike Power that you noticed?
No, not necessarily. I mean, he was parked 4 wide on the turn. It felt like he was going to have a hard time with that. The pace didn't fall apart. Promises Fulfilled was forwardly placed in World of Trouble. They rounded out the super. But the top 2 horses both came from off of it. I thought Still Having Fun ran huge. Joel Rosario with a great ride. I love it when Joel is on a closer and he gets that thing going and he's just all arms and hands and he just gets him to really, really run. And it was impressive. I was really happy for Nick. I wasn't sitting with Nick when that happened, but I knew that he was going to make a large jump in the leaderboard with that one. I think he passed like 40 people in the contest when he hit this race.
Not too bad, is it? We've got a minute a race for the last 3. Talk about short shrift, but maybe we can come back and touch on some of these things when we return later in the week. But let's start off with a raving beauty in the Just a Game.
She ran well. It's funny. I laughed at myself that I tried to beat her a couple weeks ago, like on a Wednesday or something, or whatever it was, or maybe it was a Saturday. I can't remember, but I was trying to beat her in her previous race, and she goes on to win the Grade 1 Just a Game. I thought she was good. I thought Proctor's Ledge is one that I think they're going to have to hear from this year. I think she's got a Grade 1 on her name.
Just keeps getting better.
Yeah, somewhere at Saratoga, I would see something, maybe the Diana a little bit further for her. Obviously, she'll have to face 7 Chads in there, but she's definitely one.
She's cool.
Think, yeah, she really is a cool horse.
I'm a fan.
And then Lowell is another one that I'm going to tab. I didn't think she was going to run that well today. You give her the inner at Saratoga when it starts getting a little bit.
That's a great point.
Forward favory,
especially in a non-grade 1.
Right.
I feel like her act is going to play a lot better in grade 2s and grade 3s, because I think in the grade 1s she's going to find these laid out horses who that front running thing that she's just going to be vulnerable to getting quick and past. Though even in a grade 1, heck, if she caught the right racetrack, that might be able to turn the tables. That was longer than a minute. Let's keep going.
On to race 9, and that mile B Jersey kind of snuck up on me.
This was frustrating for me that I wasn't smart enough to come up with this one. I just felt like the horse ran great. I felt like the horse was an underlay. I just felt like the finishing speeds to the wire in the previous races weren't strong enough, but able to control, and that was really predictable. There wasn't a ton of speed. I should have had more. For B Jersey.
I was going to make a joke, but it was going to kind of a little too. It didn't work. It wasn't going to work. It wasn't. However, I'll just transition to Jersey Spirit. Winner mile. What's common about
previous the Steve Sexton at Lone Star Park? But I do.
Lone Star. All great things come from Lone Star.
You love your Texas. Let's talk about biscuits for a second. I had a big view where I was out in and for a second gotten up. What an incredible horse. You probably argue the best given the setup.
He did. He really did well. He's probably just a little now. He's going to be at Saratoga and keep him in. Kind of fell out last summer.
Well, remember, he had the trouble when he got there. There was a story. But there was some very specific narrative about some incident that he spooked it in the night, like 7 in Saratoga. Hopefully that 1 year thing, and he'll do better. Or maybe actions will take another on that. I'm sure that news will be soon. Pages of day.
Some other horses that deserve call here. Lewis ran a lot better than I thought. So I wanted to make sure I did that. McCracken got this morning.
Your luck.
Good Samaritan and Warriors Club. And then also it's important to know, you say it all the time, first best thought with Bolt Door. We said immediately, hey, this way, he said he was going to have a break, then he was going to do weakness, now he's here, and he ran away. And that's just a little lesson to probably put in the back of your head.
Rick put me away there. I knew, he was obviously going to be there, but I was thinking Dora would have enough either be speed and just be so talented to run out of his skin, or at the least put Jersey away. I didn't that way.
No, not at all. He's finished. I'm sure he'll get a break. Hopefully he can get him back this summer because he showed.
The justify earlier here. Obviously, that front runner is a 2-year-old. He's a very talented horse. Hopefully, he can come back into hand. We will see. And then, this was a fun race for SJK.
This was great.
Terrific.
This is the highlight of my year. Really, I guess you want to call it. This race was something special. You look. I couldn't find spring quality if I looked again. That horse and horses like that are just hard when they're forwardly placed in slow paced races where the figure doesn't come back and it doesn't feel like they quicken. I just don't see how. I can't find them. When I look back at spring quality, there's not a thing in his last race that makes me say, "Oh, I see." I guess the only thing is that he was really close to Robert Bruce last time, and I liked Robert Bruce a little bit.
As a form handicapper, there was stories going around that Chad Brown preferred the Bruce horse to Beach Patrol. And if you accept that, that's pretty much the highest of high praise because Beach Patrol looked unbelievable on paper. And then, so from a form point of view, anytime you have these turf races, you see a finish where there's a length between two horses and they come back and what was it? One's 9-5 and one's 20-1. You're supposed to bet the 20-1. You're just supposed to as a form handicapper. The other point, which I've made on this show so many times, and I was hoisted on my own petard, not listening to myself, was in motion we trust. We've seen this now 3 out of the last 5 years in this specific race where a great trainer has won with a horse I couldn't bet with Chinese money between Slumber and I'm spacing. There's another one, a similar ilk. There's been a Mott, a Chad, and now a Motion that have all like stepped up and won this race. I need to have the attitude in this race where if you are one of my favorite trainers who win tons of turf races, you're going to be at least a C for me in the Manhattan coming back in future years. Some podcast listeners were smart enough to listen to that advice and threw the horse in. I was not one of them. I would like to point out Sadler's Joy to me, by far the best in the race. Lost ground, ran, I think it was 17 feet farther than the winner. But the real thing wasn't the ground loss for me. It was, and I'm not going to call it a mistake. I think it was a good aggressive move. I think it was Javier. Blows by the eventual winner on the turn. The winner just sort of continued to chug along and ended up with a beautiful setup, getting to make the last move. Sadler's Joy makes the move that breaks the race apart. Those two come back and run against each other. I know which one I'm going to be betting, and it ain't the one that won there.
Yeah, absolutely. And your motion you were looking for was Ascend.
Oh, Ascend.
With
yes,
Jose, and that was actually last year.
Oh, right. So Graham has won the race 2 years in a row.
Yeah, just to
really rub it in.
Yeah.
I think I got confused because was Slumber maybe a horse that was trained by both Mott and Chad at different times?
You're right. Yeah,
okay,
Mott had Slumber, and then Chad ended up with him.
So
Chad's the one who won.
I'm going to take that coin out of the mistake jar for that one. I think I'm in off the goalpost.
You can have it back. Yeah, okay. That's no problem there. But yeah, looking back through this, there's a lot of prices win this race.
Run through some of the others.
Winchester, I know, was a big price, like 17-1.
Yeah, and Clement. Yeah, right. I mean, to the exact same point. There was another trainer I'd put in that group of automatically include in the Manhattan. It would be Clement.
I don't remember what price Real Solution was. I know he became a racehorse. I don't know if he was a
racehorse. He was short. He
was
not short. He was value. I feel like he was like a 7-2 shot. Gosh, he looked amazing in the paddock that day. Any others in recent?
No, but you think about how many like short price horses run in these races. I don't have all the charts in front of me. But, like, Flincher won. Point of Entry was obviously short and won. Geoponte, I'm thinking the time that he won was probably short. So what happens, the short price ones win, too. It's not just a complete
No, I'm not saying
race.
It's a chaos race. It's just when you see an angle come up several times in the same race, there is an aspect of fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. In this case, fool me about 4 times, extreme shame on me. I think I'm just going to show up next year with the Manhattan with a bag on my head.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a tough race, tough race.
And I think that's about all the time we have, JK. We will get back into other things. Do want to give a shout out to our listener Karen Carey, who won the Belmont Betting Challenge, qualifying from the Gotham. Very cool stuff there. Registered nurse from Manhattan. Look forward to getting a chance to talk with her soon. Do you have a closing thought?
No, just let's hopefully we can find somewhere to sleep tonight, and hopefully the Wi-Fi works, and hopefully we don't get wherever it is. It's not at 10 o'clock. We don't feel like we're in the middle of the apocalypse.
He's not kidding, folks. That's the really scary thing. I mean, there's zero exaggeration in that statement. Next thing we have to decide is, are we going to do the podcasting equivalent of Dine and Dash at this workspace? They never took our money. I think we could just sneak out the back door and not pay for this thing.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I didn't log in. I have a little bit of a service I use. I didn't log in. We got the show done. There's a staircase right across the hall from here. I say we just hit it running. I'm a little bit concerned about this shirt, though.
Yeah, you will stand out. Oh, my gosh. Last thought. Going around Los Angeles yesterday with JK, folks, you wouldn't have believed it. He's got his ball cap. He's got his sunglasses. He's got his backpack. And then he's got this scooter, this electronic. Is it? Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's an electric scooter, the kind of the hoverboard. We're out here in the place where they make movies. For a second there, I thought they had recast Back to the with Marty McFly as a brother.
Oh, amazing.
I'll take the high five for that one.
Oh, yeah, good one.
All right. We are out of time. I want to thank Producer Craig, many apologies, Craig. We really put him through the ringer this morning, but it really was not our fault. Like I said, all will be told at some point. Thanks to Travis and Willie Nile for the intro up top. Thanks to Dan Illman for all his continued support, and especially for the fun it was working with him on the DRF video stuff last week. Most of all, though, thanks to all of you for listening. You make doing the show so much fun. And we will be back on the same space point.
Yeah, we'll see. But we don't
dine in there. We got to pay so we come back. Okay, so decided. We'll be on Friday. I'm Peter Thomas Fornett. May you photos.